Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to show you how to make one of these cute little needle cases, ideal for keeping your needles in, and there's a little pocket on each side that you can keep whatever else you like in. All of the instructions and measurements are for this size. However, there is also a larger size and I will share fabric measurements for this in the description. So let's get started and I'll show you how to make it.
You'll need 3 pieces of fabric, all measuring 8 inches by 5 inches, one for the lining, one for the front and one for the pocket. One piece of fusible fleece, 7.5 inches by 4.5 inches. A small strip of fabric, 1 inch by 4 inches for the loop, and a piece of felt 3.5 inches by 4.5 inches. If you want more pages, cut more pieces of felt. And you'll also need 1 button.
I'm going to give instructions for a pocket without a contrasting top and a pocket with the contrasting top. First I'll do the plain pocket and then I'll do the pocket with the contrasting top. After that, all instructions are exactly the same, whichever you want to make.
To make a plain pocket for your needle case, take your pocket piece and fold it in half lengthways. And if you want to round off the corners, use a round object, draw around it and then cut the corners round. I use my large spool holder, but any round object will do. Then cut round the lines that you drew with your fabric scissors. And of course, making sure that it's the open end you're cutting round and not the side with the fold. To make the pocket with the contrasting top edge, you'll need to cut 2 pieces of fabric rather than the one big piece of fabric. You'll need to cut them 8 inches long and one needs to be 2.5 inches wide, and the one you want the contrasting colour across the top needs to be 3 inches. Once you've cut them out, place them together with right sides facing, then pin in place and then sew together, taking 1/4 inch seam allowance, back tacking at the start and the finish. Then press your seam. You could press the seam open if you wanted to, but I press mine down towards the darker fabric. Then fold in half and you should end up with your contrasting fabric across the top. Press again and then if you like you can top stitch along the top edge of the bottom fabric, not the contrasting fabric but the bottom edge of, in my case, the brown checked fabric. Try and keep as close to the join as you can, back tacking at the start and the finish. I rounded off all of my corners, which isn't essential. I use my sewing machine spool holder cap to draw around and then I cut round the edges to make them all nice and rounded. But if you prefer to have squared corners, then just leave this step out. Then place the front of your needle case right side facing down on your ironing board. Then place your fusible fleece on top, making sure that the adhesive side is faced down, and follow manufacturer's instructions to adhere it to your fabric. Mine says to press with a damp cloth between your iron and the fusible fleece. The next step is to make a loop for your button. Take your 4-inch strip of fabric with the right side facing down towards your ironing board, fold one side over 1/4 inch and then fold the other side over 1/4 inch and press all the way along, and then fold in half and press. Then it's best to use clover clips to hold it together, and then at your sewing machine sew about 1/16 inch from the edge. Now place your pocket on your back piece of fabric and mark the centre. This is where your button loop will go. Now place your button loop with either side of it to the side of the central mark that you've just made, and the actual loop needs to come into the inside of your needle case. You don't want it sticking out, it wants to be on the inside, and I did actually leave an overhang of just under 1/2 inch on each side of my button loop, and that was just about right for the size of the button that I used. Pin your loop in place, then just sew this in place at your sewing machine, keeping close to the edge so you can't see your stitches when you join it all together, and keep your pins in place till the last minute, but try not to sew over them so you don't damage your sewing machine. Now place your front piece of your needle case over the back piece and pocket with right sides facing, and then pin or clip in place, and then mark a 4-inch opening along the top edge. This is where you will eventually turn your needle case the right side out. Then starting at the first mark you made, sew all the way around your needle case until you get back to the second mark that you made, taking 1/4 inch seam allowance and back tacking at the start and the finish. Trim off any loose ends. Then, if you like, you can trim your seams down to a little bit closer to the sewing line. I wasn't going to do this originally, then I changed my mind. So you can see here I've actually already clipped my corners. Don't trim where you've left the opening, just leave that, don't trim that down. You want a nice good amount of fabric to turn under on the opening, but the rest of it you can trim down closer to your sewing line. And then when you've done that, you can clip your corners. Now you can turn your needle case the right side out through the opening you left when you sewed your front to your back. It's quite easy because you've left a sizable opening and it will easily push through. And then turn the pocket the right way round if it wasn't already. Use something pointed but not sharp to push those corners out. And then give the whole of your needle case a good press using a nice hot iron. And then turn the opening under on both sides and then give that a good press. And then put a couple of pins in the opening to keep that closed. And then you're going to sew all the way around the edge with a top stitch. Next, at your sewing machine, top stitch about 1/8 inch from the edge all the way around your needle case, taking your time around the corners and removing your pins as you go past the opening. And remember to back tack at the start and the finish. Next, find the centre of your needle case and put a mark at the top and the bottom. Then find the centre of your piece of felt and put a mark. Well, actually you need to mark this all the way along. It's a little bit difficult to mark on the felt, but do your best. And then line the felt central lines up with your needle case central lines and pin either side of your central line. I put 2 pins on each side. Then at your sewing machine, sew straight down the central line, back tacking at the start and the finish. Find the centre of the side you are going to sew your button on and put a mark, and then you can sew your button on. I'm using a nice vintage heart-shaped button. If you don't want to see your stitch marks on the other side of the fabric, then sew like I am so that you don't go all the way through the fabric. And that's your needle case finished and all ready to use.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, could you please, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.